Hello everyone, as with you always, this is Rich doing another video today on XRP. So I hope you're all having a wonderful day today wherever you are in this great world. We're gonna talk about XRP. And I gotta start with this. So it looks like the US House passes government funding bill, so we might not see a shutdown. Take a listen.
On this vote, the yeas are 341 and the nays are 88. The bill is passed.
All it needs now is to get through the Senate. Then it will go on to President Trump's desk. This could be good because that means that they'll continue to work towards clarity for crypto. This could be looked at as bullish for the market as well. XRP price prediction. How high can it go in 4 months? You can't even predict where XRP is going to go next week, but they're trying to look out 4 months now, and they say that it could possibly go between $2 and $4. First of all, when this breakout begins, it's going to come out of nowhere. There's not going to be a prediction for it to happen on a specific day. It's just going to happen. And the market, you could see it in the chart. It is loading for that moment already, but nobody can time it. And that's why you always got to be invested in this cryptocurrency. Could a traditional bank survive a $7 billion withdrawal in 24 hours? Take a listen to what CZ said here at Davos.
In December 2023, in one day, there was maximum withdrawal of $7 billion equivalent of assets from Binance.com. No issues. In that week, there was a few days before that, it was up like, couple hundred million, a billion, and then 7 billion, and then a billion. In that week, total $14 billion worth of assets got withdrawn from the platform. No issues. In a bank.
So imagine $14 billion leaving and it not being an issue at all. This is why the traditional financial system is broken. If that was to happen, oh my God, it would be all over the mainstream media news. And here's Phil Kwok from EZA also talking about this as well.
So I think it's a case of banks saying, look, traditionally, we've been able to offer these sort of interest-bearing accounts. This is where consumers have been able to deposit their money. And now there's actually an alternative that is a better solution. I think that that's where we're going to see a lot of this this battle play out. You're right. It seems like these banks have just come out of nowhere and suddenly been like, look, we've woken up. We see this problem. They threw out this number of, we see $6 trillion in deposits leaving our system. And that's going to present huge structural risks to the way that commercial lending works. I think that a lot of that is potentially blown out of proportion. And I think that really it's just fundamentally there's a better product that's now out there and users can use.
And I totally agree with what he just said. There's a better product, but they don't want you to be able to gain from it. They don't want you to earn from it. And that's why the Clarity Act is so important. But the banks, they already failed. Every customer at the bank is a pissed off customer. They're not making any money with the bank, and everything comes with fees. That's why the alternative, people will just continue to flood into the alternative. If XRP hits $1,000, Ripple's XRP holdings could hit $40 trillion. And they'll use this now against the XRP community. They'll say nobody's ever going to allow this to happen. Nobody's going to allow Ripple to have holdings that are worth that much money. But here's the reality. XRP was built to be a $1,000 asset. It was built to be a $10,000 asset. And they don't care if we get rich either. You know, that was always a narrative that flooded the XRP community. They're never going to let all of us get rich, but yet Bitcoin maxis, they could get rich all day long. You see how it's such a double standard in crypto? People could get rich off meme coins. Does anybody care when it happens? No, but they know that it happens. Same thing's going to happen with XRP holders. We're going to get rich and people are going to have to deal with it. Hong Kong is ready to release stablecoin licenses in Q1. And Ripple is already involved in the broader HKMA stablecoin ecosystem. Ripple partnered with Fubon Bank in Hong Kong to test real estate asset tokenization on the XRP ledger as a potential use case for the EHKD. And you see, Hong Kong is ready to issue the first stablecoin licenses in Q1. I could guarantee you right now, Ripple's getting one of those licenses. And that's just going to be another rail that XRP is going to run on in the future. All these rails getting put in place for over a decade, that did not happen for no reason. People are always like, yeah, well, they have all the rails, but look at the price of XRP. That's because a lot of this hasn't gone live yet. When it goes live, anybody not holding XRP, they're going to be wishing that they bought XRP. Coinbase launches a quantum computing advisory board. The new board will publish research, issue guidance, and respond in real time to quantum advances. And here's their team right here. So now Coinbase wants to get ahead of quantum computers. But remember, quantum computers weren't going to be a thing for another 10 years. Oh, that's a decade down the road. But the XRP ledger is already going quantum safe as well. The XRP ledger is adding quantum resistant security with dilithium cryptography, helping protect transactions from future quantum threats. And Ripple, they were on top of this right away because they know quantum computers are most likely 2 years down the road. I don't even know if it's going to be that far down the road, the way things are advancing. I mean, you take a look around and you see how the shift is already here. Everybody's now talking about tokenization. There was a time where people didn't even mention crypto on the mainstream media news. Now it's mentioned daily. It's talked about daily. And now with this Clarity Act, they talk about it even more now than ever before. Crypto isn't going anywhere. There's people out there that still think one day you're going to wake up and crypto is going to be outlawed and it's going to zero. And here's Ripple's David Schwartz comparing XRP to Bitcoin. You know, whenever I talk to somebody new about crypto, right away they're like, why don't I just invest in Bitcoin? And I'm sure you get that as well, because that's all they ever knew. That's all they ever heard from the mainstream media news, because the Bitcoin marketing team made sure that that's all they ever talk about. But take a listen to what David says. And anybody that you know that talks about Bitcoin, here's why XRP is better.
On the XRP ledger is XRP, has a somewhat different design from Bitcoin, which results in higher speed and lower costs. And I'm going to explain to you why some of that is. But I think a critical thing to understand is that the transaction throughput is very much higher, about 1,500 transactions per second. This is a little bit out of date. We just closed our 50 millionth ledger. So that's 50 million ledgers closed without an issue, so it is proven over time. And another important thing is the difference between proof of work and these distributed agreement protocols like the XRP ledger uses is that distributed agreement protocols are more predictable. They have a somewhat predictable cadence. So XRP ledgers tend to close about every 4 seconds, and they're pretty consistent in that. Bitcoin blocks produced every 10 minutes, but you can have an hour with no block, or you can have 2 blocks produced at the same time because it is a probabilistic process. Distributed agreement protocols are not probabilistic. XRP is available on more than 125 exchanges. But I want to get into the technical stuff. That's what you guys are interested in. And some of the technical innovations in XRP are on the slide here. When XRP came out, really all there was Bitcoin. There was not the explosion of different agreement protocols, not the explosion of different digital assets. And I think we had three core early technological innovations. So one of them was replacing proof of work with federated Byzantine agreement, which essentially means people agree on which transactions to execute and when. We'll talk a lot more about that later. Another innovation was that transactions operate on views. So you don't operate on the ledger directly, you sort of operate on a view of that ledger. And that's extremely important because when a transaction finishes executing, what it produces is a view that contains modifications. And what that means is that that modified view can be analyzed for violations of system rules. This is extremely important because an enormous number of failures in the blockchain space can be prevented with this type of system. Many of you probably don't know Bitcoin had a famous fork in 2013 that caused some people to suffer losses, and the probably more well known to many of you is the attack on the DAO on the Ethereum protocol that resulted in people losing money as money was stolen from the DAO that they had to split over. On the XRP ledger is that.
And David, I still believe he was one of the creators of Bitcoin, but then they went on to create a better Bitcoin. Bitcoin was just a test run. And what followed was XRP, which was built to fix all the problems with Bitcoin. But yet people still haven't figured that out. They're like, well, look at the price of Bitcoin. Yeah, it runs on hype. It runs on Tether printing billions upon billions of USDT and propping up the price of Bitcoin with it. And even now, here we are, and there's new people coming into the crypto space every single day. And some of those people still invest in Bitcoin because they live under this assumption that it's always going to be up only until it isn't. History only repeats itself until it doesn't. And the gains in this space are no longer in Bitcoin. And I think that's why a lot of the OG Bitcoin maxis, they're starting to sell off their Bitcoin now. They're starting to get into other assets now. But nobody ever likes to talk about that. Whenever you see somebody talking about selling their Bitcoin or a Satoshi era wallet just unlocked and sold off X amount of Bitcoin, people right away say, well, that's okay because BlackRock's going to buy it. Eventually, even BlackRock will shift away from Bitcoin. Look at where Larry Fink is right now. He's the co-chair at the World Economic Forum. He's pushing that CBDC narrative. He's pushing the New World Order. And they're not going to have competition with Bitcoin. They already picked what they're going to use for the future. What they're going to use is what you're holding. XRP in extreme fear. Why strong pessimism has historically often been a turning point. Right now, this market is all in extreme fear. But why is it like that? Because there's so much uncertainty right now. Nobody really knows what's going to happen next. In previous runs, you could kind of predict what was coming. But now people are starting to realize if the president talks about tariffs, guess what? Bitcoin's dumping out and the rest of the market's going with it. And if some sort of conflict breaks out in the world, right away, Bitcoin's dumping out and the rest of the market's going with it. And then on top of it, you have a lot of market manipulation going on as well. Every time Bitcoin got close to 90K or just above 90K, right away they pushed it back down. And that happened week over week. So right away, people think there's a problem with XRP. It's going sideways or it's dipping. No, XRP is just following Bitcoin still until it doesn't. But how does XRP break away from Bitcoin? Through utility, through its actual use case. People utilizing XRP to make transactions. And that is coming. And institutional adoption is going to amplify that by like 1,000x from where we are right now. And when it happens, most people are going to be taken off guard by it because it's going to happen suddenly. And that's why that market structure bill is so important, because it greenlights institutional adoption. And we're just not quite there yet. But if you could make it through this, we will get to the exciting times together. That's for sure. And that is absolutely loading still. Nothing changed with XRP. In fact, there's more growth around Ripple right now than even last year and the year before that and the year before that. It's been nonstop expansion and growth without any price appreciation on XRP. That growth is going to be reflected in the price eventually. But until it happens, stay patient, stay positive, and let's get rich together. With that said, I'm going to wrap up this video. I want to thank you all for watching. I appreciate all of you. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great night.